I would say that the lesson learned for me to anybody else out there interested in starting a business is please find something you're passionate about, because it's so much work, it's so much time, it's so much effort. But if the subject matter is something that you genuinely love to be involved with, it's not going to be that big of a drag, and it's not going to be that much work. It's going to be incredibly exciting and rewarding, because to your point, you'll feel like you're living the life that you're meant to live.
A company is simply a group of people, and as a leader of people, you have to be a great listener, you have to be a great motivator, you have to be very good at praising and looking for the best in people. People are no different from flowers. If you water flowers, they flourish. If you praise people, they flourish, and that's a critical attribute of a leader.
Your actions, you should always feel in life and in your jobs, your actions are somehow have a good purpose behind them. They better the world in some way. Don't ever do something just because it's an assignment. You better believe that there is some end goal that is good for the world. Almost every new invention and computer and all came about from those ideals. I mean, I really wanted to help the world communicate so much. Other people inspired me into a revolution. I want to be a part of changing things. I want to be a part of better education. I want to be a part of the young person having so much mastery over technology and be able to do things they never could before. Those were the goods that were pushing me. It was almost, without those goods, I wouldn't have even designed a computer.
If you're going to start your own thing, maybe you have a grand vision of like all the different features it's going to have and all the different, revenue lines you're going to do, and, keep that vision, but do one piece of that first and do it really, really, really well. It's so much better to do a few things well than many things poorly.
You can't fulfill your full passion, whether it's through music or art or dance, if you've lost sight of the things that make you a real person. And I had to refine myself almost, wow, what is it that makes me me? And once I refound that, it's like everything else came together again. I was able to write again, I was able to create. But without those things, then you lose sight of everything.
The definition of values is they're the behaviors or principles that you religiously adhere to within your company. When I say religious, I mean that no amount of data will sway you from those principles, and the degree to which that you have the courage to maintain your conviction around those ideas is the degree to which you're going to be successful over the long term.
So many things go wrong when you're starting a company, and often I think people ask, what mistakes should you avoid making? And my answer to that question is don't even bother trying to avoid mistakes, because you're going to make tons of mistakes, right? And the important thing is actually learning quickly from whatever mistakes you make and not giving up, right? And I mean, there are things every single year of Facebook's existence that could have killed us or made it so that it just seemed like moving forward and making a lot of progress just seemed intractable. But you just kind of bounce back and you learn, and nothing is impossible. You just have to kind of keep running through the walls.
Basically, the theory is we're all born thinking like entrepreneurs. Like when we crawl and we fall, when we're trying to walk, we figure it out. Entrepreneurs always figure out, you're born thinking like an entrepreneur, that, I'm going to figure this out regardless, and I'm going to keep going. Now, often the challenge is families and friends convince you not to be an entrepreneur, because when you say, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to be the most famous person, I'm going to save the seals, they say, don't do that. It didn't happen before. Yeah. It's never happened. You're gonna fail. You're gonna embarrass us.
They put the limiters on it.
They put the limiters on. Yeah. They put the blinders on you. But true entrepreneurs will just keep figuring it out.
If you've got a movie fan, you've got a movie maker.
Like, I've never met a filmmaker that wasn't a movie buff first. I don't care who it is, whether it's like me or great directors like Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino. They're hardcore movie fans who still imbibe. So I don't think it's possible to be a filmmaker unless you're a film fan. So I always encourage everyone in those Q&As where I'm like, if you're here listening to me talk about this stuff, you are not a film fan, you're a filmmaker. You just haven't made a film yet. Go out and make your film, because who knows better how to do this stuff than the people that consume it on a regular basis. We're not different. I was you. I sat there watching other people's stuff, and I just got to a place where I was like, why them? Why not me? Like, if this counts as a movie, why can't I make a movie and stuff? Which is funny, because that's what my movies make people do now. They're like, if Yo Gozers counts, I'm making a movie. And that's a good call to arms. I'm not even insulted by that. I'm like, good, whatever makes you step forward and try your self-expression. It's the only reason anyone knows my name or my work, and I've been doing this for 22 years, I haven't had to get a real job, is because it started with the first step of going like, why can't I do that? You know, like, I see people do it, and that's interesting, and I like their stories, but I never saw my world represented up on the screen. And that's where I looked for myself. I never found myself in a classroom, I never found myself in a church, man. Closest moments I've ever had to finding out who I am have been in art, sitting in a movie theater, watching a movie, man. It's the dark mirror. You see yourself reflected in a weird way. In reading and listening to music, watching TV, these were the closest moments where I was like, oh, I think this is who I am and stuff like that. So that's within everybody.
The people I talked to thought I was crazy, and like, it's very possible in an alternate universe I might have been wrong, but just the fact that people were taking more photos and that each and every person had a camera in their pocket meant that there was no way that there wasn't going to be something around photos that would happen in the Valley and people starting companies around it. The question would be, can you compete against the big guys? And we were just unique enough, and we positioned ourselves in such a way that we were differentiated and people wanted to use it. And that just like kind of started the flywheel.
And you know what everybody wants to hear? What they already believe to be true. And so the last thing they want to hear is an original idea that contradicts their belief system. So it's very hard to even bring that kind of stuff up. But those are the things, those are the only things that you believe that everybody around you doesn't believe, when you're right, that create real value in the world. Everything else people already know. There's no value created. It's just business as usual. So it's so important to think for yourself.
Don't solicit feedback on your product, your idea, or your business just for validation purposes. Be really careful about that. You want to tell the people that can help move your idea forward, but if you're just looking to your friend, coworker, husband, wife for validation, be careful, because out of love and concern, a lot of people will express some concerns, and it can stop a lot of multi-million-dollar ideas right in their tracks in the beginning.
And if you're really trying to achieve something, then sort of say, hey, here's my vision. And I like to say, be obstinate about your vision, but be really flexible about your tactics. What does that mean? It's sort of like think big, act small. What that means is, it's important to have a vision of where you're trying to go. How you get there is a series of experiments. Now, you can call them failures when they don't work, but they're learning experiments where you try things, see what works, try the next thing.
And I think that's what people always have to ask themselves. Do you believe in the concept of what you're doing? Do you believe that there's really a there? If you can figure out the right, product package or the right way to reach users, and if you believe that, then, keep scrapping, because usually there's a way.
Your only limitations are those which you set up in your own mind or permit others to set up for you.
but it's things like knowing who you are inside, who you are, and believing in that person, and remembering it through life, and saying today, it's a good person I am, and I have some good values and a good head on my shoulders, and I don't want to be corrupted by the successes I'm going to have in life and in business. I don't want to be corrupted and go in different ways. If I make a lot of money, I still want to be that good, pure human who thinks well. Like I said, don't set yourself up for those frowns, you know, and you don't always have to win every single argument. You can think your way and believe in your thoughts are good in your own brain, and somebody else doesn't agree with you, that's okay. They just think a different way. There's no need to look at the world of, oh, we've all got to be in competition. It's my way. Everyone has to be just like me or they're no good. They have to use my computer. They have to go to my school. They have to be my country, you know. They have to do things my way. That's not the way to think. Be very open to a lot of different people have differences, and we can all still see each other as good, and we get along a lot better and have a lot more peace that way. Acceptance of others is the key.
What we really want to do is raise our level of awareness so the expectation becomes a natural state for our mind to be in. And we've already mentioned that expectation is a mindset. It's a mental state. And you're going to find that that state comes to you with an increase of awareness.
I never give up. I never give up. I go my own way, risk my life. So this is why I always tell the people, not because one things fall down, you just give up. Never give up, never give up. One day you will succeed.
I think it's really to be true to yourself and listen as much as one is able to other people whose opinions you respect and look up to, but in the end it has to come from you, and you can't really worry too much by looking to the left or to the right about what the competition might be doing or other people in your field might be doing. It has to be a true vision.
And there are a lot of people from whom we can learn a lot. And I think, like, you know, the one piece of advice is, like, don't underestimate anyone you come across ever. Right. Like, whether they're, a blue collar worker waiting for the bus, or they're, helping you at they're the server or bartender at the restaurant, or they're a lower ranking employee. I mean, the smartest leaders I've ever seen have always gone around the room and asked for everybody's opinion.
And oftentimes the best methodology is to start with the perfect experience with just one person, get that right, and then figure out how to scale something great instead of scaling something not so great and then trying to improve it. That's really hard to do.
You're really trying to solve a new problem in a different way. You have to come to problems with beginner's mind. Right? Not knowing something can be a very powerful tool into accomplishing it because you don't know that it's not possible. That's what doing a startup is. Not realizing that something is impossible and doing it anyway.
We get to create any company we want, right? We get to create the reason for its existence. We get to create the rules of the game and who we hire and how we hire them and who can stay and who can't stay, right? It's beautiful. And so I just would encourage everyone that as we all contemplate life to try to question the assumptions that we live by and the default options that are given to us and expand our thinking to wonder what we really can do with our lives.
Your job is to make sure that you stay as agile as possible so that you can find what will be your company as you grow. And it comes down to the fact that you need to iterate as quickly as possible to find fit.
A lot of people don't want to try things that might not work. You know what I'm saying? Everyone wants to try the sure thing. And there is no such thing as the sure thing. And if you're looking at somebody else's work to try to gauge your own, as I have for years, you will constantly feel like a failure. Instead, concentrate on telling your story. Like, this is the thing I'm real big on. Your voice is your only currency in this life. That's all you got. The things you see and perceive, the prism through which you process all the information that you take in, that's it. You're the most unique supercomputer on the planet, unique from everybody else. That perspective is valuable, insanely valuable, because nobody else can give it but you. And that's why it's always better to shoot weird, or shoot different, or shoot original, as opposed to shoot what works, like, or go for a successful model, or, as I've tried to do, try to be John Hughes or something like that. You'll never succeed that way. If you try using your own voice, you try expressing your own thoughts that nobody else can do, that's your best shot at success. Because that's the thing that you bring to the table that nobody else can bring. And if your timing is fantastic, you say the right thing at the right time, you could have a career. So when you get into this business, they tend to like tell you to sheep it up and like take off the edges and make it look like this. Hey, that worked, do that. But always shoot for that thing that you want to do.
A well thought out critique of whatever you're doing is as valuable as gold. And you should seek that from everyone you can, but particularly your friends.
Performing under pressure, whether it's me or anybody else, is the same. You know, I have the same pressures as anyone else. There's time, there's performance, there's financial. I mean, there's deadlines. My pressures are not unique. The situations may be different, or but everybody has the same kinds of pressures. But what I found, or what I find fascinating, is the interpretation of the stimuli. Let me explain. So I was watching the Olympics, this last Summer Olympics, and I was amazed at how bad the questions were that the reporters would ask all the athletes. And almost always, they asked the same question, whether they were about to compete or after they competed. Were you nervous, right? And to a T, all the athletes went, no, right? And what I realized is it's not that they're not nervous, it's their interpretation of what's happening in their bodies. I mean, what happens when you're nervous, right? Your heart rate starts to go, you sort of get a little tense, you get a little sweaty, right? You have expectation of what's coming, and we interpret that as, I'm nervous. Now, what's the interpretation of excited? Your heart rate starts to go, you're anticipating what's coming, right? You get a little sort of like tense. It's all the same thing, it's the same stimuli. Except these athletes, these Olympic quality athletes, have learned to interpret the stimuli that the rest of us would say as nervous as excited. They all say the same thing. No, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. And so I've actually practiced it just to tell myself when I start to get nervous that this is excitement. And so I used to speak in front of a large audience and somebody'd say, how do you feel? I used to say, a little nervous. Now when somebody says, how do you feel? I'm like, really excited actually. And it came from just sort of telling myself, no, this is excitement. And it becomes a little bit automatic later on. But it's kind of a remarkable thing to deal with pressure by interpreting what your body is experiencing as excitement rather than nerves. And it's really kind of effective. It makes you want to rush forwards rather than pull back, and yet it's the same experience.
The hardest thing to do is start. You have all these ideas, and everyone has an idea, but it's really about executing the idea and building the idea and attracting other people to help you work on the idea. That is the biggest challenge. But the way to begin is to get the idea out of your head, draw it out, talk about it, program it if you're a programmer, or make it if you're building something.